Evening, everyone. I'm happy to be part of this interesting forum. Thanks to the organizers to invite me. It's been a long time I've been in touch with Dr. Nahla to collaborate with the American University in the Emirates. And this is the right time to bring some possibility with that collaboration. Indeed, it's my pleasure and honor to be part of this interesting forum. However, addressing the impact of COVID-19 on education is rather a challenging task to manage in 20 minutes time or 15 minutes time that I'm going to speak in the next few minutes. Therefore, as asked by the organizers, I will rather focus my presentation on teaching in times of pandemic. So I call my presentation as disrupted yet deliberated. So we did it, even though we had some struggles to handle that. So as an educationist and as a practitioner, I would say that teaching was to some extent disrupted by the pandemic, yet most of us deliberated diligently to large extent and in many contexts. Of course, there are challenges that every one of us experienced. We have learned lessons from this experience, and we continue to learn several lessons for our future practices. I will mainly focus my presentation on the trends of teaching in times of the pandemic, exploring the opportunities, challenges, and offer some ways forward. That's going to be my focus. Let me see how I can. Okay, great. Let me start by presenting the trends in teaching due to the pandemic. Right? What trends have evolved or changed during this time of the crisis? The big shift we have seen in teaching in recent times is the tech trend, a shift in the use of technology, which otherwise I call the pandemic shift. Instead of calling it a paradigm shift, I call it a pandemic shift, or the Zoom effect. We're all Zooming, right? We talk to each other in Zoom. So that's the effect that we have experienced. In one of my other research that I carried out recently, I explored students' perspectives on the transformation of teaching and learning in tertiary education. Majority of the respondents in that study indicated that the tech shift in teaching has been occurring for quite some time. It's not new. What we witness now is the acceleration of it, the speed in which it has actually gone wide around the world. And some argue that 5 months ago, no one valued online teaching, or many did not value online teaching as we do now. While some others argue, hey, wait for another 5 months to see the worth of the online teaching during the post-pandemic world. Hopefully, things are going to be all right in 5 months' time, or less than that. While some take this in a realistic stance to use blended approach, that's going to be the future, some predict, and let's see what's going to happen. And of course, universities, academics, students who already dated with online teaching and learning could quickly face and adapt to this disruption as they were familiar with it, while some others struggled to cope because they never dated with it. Some suggest that the pandemic exposed how we were underprepared, or how we are underprepared to deal with such emerging crises in teaching and in education. Of course, some countries and some institutions were well prepared to face this, while others found it difficult. And I would say in the UAE, most institutions could very quickly bounce back and be resilient to face this new reality, including our university, the British University in Dubai. We completely deliver the entire term teaching online using Blackboard. Some consider that this trend is going to be the new opportunity, while some others caution about the potential challenges and the troubles that it might bring. In one way, I would say that this disruption in teaching caused by the pandemic is a blessing in disguise, as it literally forced all of us to act quickly and embrace the alternatives. Of course, when there are not many choices, it's easy to choose. We were in such situation, so we could just choose the online teaching. Given this, many institutions and individuals embraced online teaching in short time. If there was no pandemic, we would still not be able to deal with this online teaching reality. So that's the blessing in disguise, I mean. So certainly this disruption has actually put this interesting challenge for us to deal with it. Another interesting positive effect of this disruption is that many of us have become very kind and compassionate towards others, because we all are in this reality. So we learn to be more caring and compassionate towards others as we needed ourselves this. It is good to see even the bossy teachers to be friendly to students and the demanding students to be nice to the instructors. So that's a shift. Good to see. It's good to see teachers being kinder to students, and parents and students are very understandable to teachers, much better than before. I could see that in my practice currently. Other privileges include that we could overcome the distance. We don't have to drive far to work, and we can stay back at our home with our own comfortable ends to sit and learn, teach. These are some of the privileges that we enjoy during this time through online teaching and learning. I would say that technology has much evolved, advanced than ever before. It is very user-friendly, and it is not impossible any longer to deal with it as we used to have struggled in the past. It is important to understand that technology is not everything for pedagogic practices, but a tech-able teacher is much sought after, especially at this time, which is a reality that we need to understand. If you span around in the job market, many tech-able teachers are on demand. Many institutions are starting tech research center, ICT research programs. These are really catching up in this time that is very attractive for online teaching and learning. Let's look through some of the challenges. The key flip side of online teaching and learning is the increase in screen time and its impact on our physical and psychological well-being. We spend more time on screen. Children spend more time on screen. So this is something that we need to be mindful. Hospitals recently reported that there is a spike in eye problem in times of the pandemic due to the increase in screen time. So we have to be very careful about using screen for all our daily work and teaching, learning, and other activities. It is also possible that people may develop aversion towards online teaching and learning, as excess of everything may result in disliking. Already, people are tired of webinars and online, sessions, because everyone is doing this around the world. So that's going to be a negative effect, I would say. Some argue that nothing compares to real. For them, online teaching and learning is not real. Online teaching is more similar to touching someone with gloves. Wearing gloves and touching someone is not real. For them, it's okay to use gloves during the pandemic time. Same way it's okay to use online teaching in times of disruption, not forever. As we are real people, real teachers dealing with real students, we need real learning space. This is what some who like such face-to-face experience as the dean started out well, saying that more than the teaching, the social side of learning, the informal learning experience, the coming to the campus itself, meeting peers, meeting other fellow colleagues, gives us a lot of learning every day. We miss those aspects of the social side of learning. That's something that we need to be very mindful as well. I would say we should be also mindful of the digital divide, that not everyone is able to have the privilege to own high-tech devices, and the tech ability of all, that not everyone is able to deal with the modern softwares or all the new gadgets. So we have to be mindful of those challenges, and we must consider the gap in resources for all to embrace technology. Not every institution, not every country is able to equip in quick time to deal with these kinds of demands. So these are some of the challenges I see. The big question here, how best online teaching and learning is helping us for the universal pursuit of knowledge. Philosophically speaking, that going to university, learning in university is directed towards the pursuit of universal knowledge. Are we able to achieve this goal merely by shallow teaching and learning in online platforms? We need to really introspect our own practices. Let me show quickly. I'm sure that you are aware of these basic, learning taxonomies built by Bloom's quite long ago. We have the latest one called the Bloom's Digital Taxonomy. Before I put forth the way forward, let's quickly reflect on these, models that were built earlier. I don't want to go over them in the interest of time. However, it is important to evaluate the use of online teaching and learning and its rigor to meet the higher order thinking skill, which is possible only in deep teaching and in deep learning. Particularly the ability to analyze, evaluate, and create requires cognitive rigor. Are we able to provide such cognitive rigor, the possibility to learn the higher order thinking skills using a few approaches in online platforms? It's not clear, therefore, how best online teaching and learning could help us with deep learning and deep teaching. It's important to turn to theories for insight how many theories around are helping us in finding answers to the problems that we are facing. And I'm very mindful and aware of the rich theoretical basis in the field of teaching and learning. I don't have time to go to all of them, and it will only increase the complexity of our reflection if we attempt to visit all of them. Therefore, here are some of the essential theoretical reasoning and reflection that I would like to offer as ways forward to reflect about our current and future pedagogical practices, especially as it disrupted in this time of pandemic. Richard Feldman, one of the contemporary American philosophers, notion called the epistemic obligation is worth revisiting in times of pandemic teaching. Feldman asserts that as instructors and as learners, we must hold epistemic obligation, which demands two duties. One duty is to know the truth, the other is to avoid error. I'll repeat, one duty is to know the truth, the other is to avoid error. And it is not easy to hold epistemic obligation in shallow teaching and peripheral learning. He argues that institutions, instructors, and learners must fulfill epistemic obligations to ensure the universal pursuit of knowledge. An epistemic obligation is the pedagogical moral duty, otherwise, as contested by Robert Hardy. So if online teachings and learning is not able to help us to fulfill our epistemic obligation, our pedagogical moral duty, how good are we to go with it? We must be aware of Lee Schulman's pedagogical content knowledge framework, which was further developed by Misra and Holher, who added technology and called it technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge, that an instructor must have familiarity with the technology, the pedagogic ability, and then the content knowledge in order to be a good instructor, right? And I would like to further include moral and empathic dimensions in order to make it more appealing, especially during this time of disruption. And I call it MEDPAC, including moral, empathic, technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge, as we need to fulfill the moral duty as instructors and institutions, and we have to be empathic and kind towards learners who might have challenges to deal with technological issues. So this is something that we can think to further develop as MEDPAC framework. And another interesting work of Hert Biesta, one of my colleagues from the previous research network, has written an interesting article that comes timely exactly at this time of disruption, that focuses on the 3 gifts of teaching. Biesta talks about 3 interesting gifts of teaching. Teaching is not a profession, it's a mission. And we are blessed with these 3 interesting gifts, which we are passing to the learners. For him, the first gift is being given what you did not ask for, which he calls as epistemic qualification, in which teacher's duty is to deliver beyond expectations of the learner. So I'm not just delivering what I'm asked to. I need to fulfill my epistemic duties, and I need to fulfill my epistemic obligation, which is possible only when I am able to have this epistemic qualification to go beyond what is asked for. The second gift is double truth giving. How many of us actually have time to do that? This is a big question. And this Biesta calls as intellectual socialization, in which the teacher fulfills epistemic duty. Because in dealing with the double truth giving, the instructor would go beyond the norms, would go beyond the status quo, would go beyond the boundaries to negotiate, to discuss the ideas with the learners and collectively construct knowledge together. The third gift Biesta calls as being given yourself, which he calls as the pedagogical subjectification. Here the teacher transcends himself or herself to the needs of the students. More a servant leadership approach. How best are we able to cherish these gifts using online teaching learning, considering the challenges for deep pedagogical engagement in online teaching and learning? I further would like us to reflect on the need for instructional leadership by both instructors and institutions in leading the use of appropriate and authentic curriculum, pedagogic practices, and assessment techniques. Instructional leaders play a pivotal role in leading instructors, instructions, learners, and learning. Let me now look for the way forward, exploring the trends, theories, opportunities, and challenges eventually lead us to foresee the ways forward. My sense is that the trend of online teaching and learning will possibly continue, maybe partially, even when the pandemic is gone. Whether we like it or not, this is going to stay there for a long time or even forever, and be sophisticated and be shaped to make it more user-friendly, fixing all the comments and critics that we talk about. Maybe it will grow better. And it's up to us to use this meaningfully for our own benefit, but not as our burden. Some argue that the online teaching and learning is the new normal, right? We talk about the notion, the new normal now. While some others argue the other ways, assuming normal as neither bad nor as ideal ground and state of mind, and assuming chaos has always been around and be part of the normal. There has never been a perfect old normal, or there will never be a perfect new normal. Therefore, in my sense, a new normal will evolve in the post-pandemic world. Eventually, blended learning possibly be accepted as a common practice. And that could be a reality that we all have to undergo our experience in the future. And of course, this comes not as an easy way. We need to, of course, do a lot of sacrifice. We need to be diligently manage screen time. We need to manage digital divide. We need to be tech able and tech resourced, and other challenges have to be managed and tackled in order to carry this online teaching and learning beyond. An important skill needed for this is the social tech engagement that will help effective and meaningful interactions between people using technology. If that is not achieved, there will be a tech barrier that would stop us with less interactions. I'm not here to discuss on who benefits from the emergence of online teaching and learning, not leaving behind the arguments that a few tech giants' profits has gone high in this time of disruption. And this situation, should this be seen as disaster profiting? It's another debate that I don't want to open now. But it's important to question those. Teaching, for me, is central to universities' existence. And therefore, universities' must find better ways to strengthen and sustain quality teaching. Supporting instructors, students, and supporting one another is very important in this time of disruption to overcome any challenges in practicing teaching and learning in our daily life. The UAE suggests, if we really drive around in Dubai Road, we see everywhere a beautiful slogan saying, "We are all responsible." That's an interesting suggestion from the country here. Same way, we are all responsible for the teaching learning practices during this time or any other time. So let's be mindful of the challenges and opportunities and take this as a learning experience to further drive our educational practices for the better of the world and for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Solomon. There is a question for you from Dr. Ahmed Khamis. Our dear audience, please, if you have any questions, concerns, feel free to ask Dr. Solomon. There's some questions in the chat box, and I believe.
Do you want? Okay, let me check if I need to stop sharing this, and then I can see the chat QA. Okay. Is there any research on ways to provide alternatives for the absence of the social aspect of the educational experience in distance learning? I can't think of any at the moment, but I'm sure this has been addressed already by several research. I think this is an interesting research we all have to carry out, certainly to deal with these social aspects. That's very important for us. Let's see other. What is your take on synchronous and asynchronous instruction in terms of learner engagement? That's quite technical terms, which I haven't really thought about. Maybe it's interesting for us to explore. If you have any questions in the line of arguments I made, that would be more appropriate to engage in discussion.
Okay. The other question of Dr. Ahmed Khamis is on the chat, not on the question and answers box, it's in the chat box. He's asking you, in your opinion, was the quality of education affected by distance learning? And then was it affected positively or negatively? What are your recommendations? What do you advise students in high of current challenges caused by COVID-19?
I think this is a good question. This is in line of what I offered in my discussion. I think in my sense, certainly the quality of teaching and learning has suffered during this online teaching and learning. We should be honest. And it's mainly because most of the instructors were learning themselves, and most of the students themselves have not really been ready to go through this online teaching and learning. So of course we don't have to be shy to talk about this. We can learn from our mistakes. The tools are very new for many of us to deal with. We try our best to use them, but as I said, they are not giving us the real feel of teaching learning. That's something that is the discrepancy. We cannot have everything at at this kinds of time, so we should be mindful of that challenges. But to put it in a nutshell, the quality has suffered.
Yeah, we have one asking if is it possible if he can get the PowerPoint.
Yes, please. I will share with you the PowerPoint. It's very simple PowerPoint, and you can use it. Share it with the participants.
Okay.
Professor Solomon?
Yes.
Professor Solomon?
Yes, Professor. Yes.
Thank you. This is William Cornwell, Dean for College of Education. I was just wondering what your thoughts are about how the effects might be different for higher education versus for children, for instance, who have had to also move into the online teaching environment.
Yes, I think in my experience, I have little children who are learning from home, using the online platform. I taught postgraduate learners, and children seems to be much quick to adapt to this compared to adult learners. Of course, the young generation is very much they are tech-able compared to the adult learners. So in this regard, I wouldn't doubt the ability of the undergrad students who are more or less in the age group of 18 to 25 to 26. So they are, the millennials who are really gifted with this tech ability. But certainly the adult learners do have challenges in dealing with this technology. But some schools have been very quick to provide a better technology to children, and they offered good instruction to parents to help children to learn. Mainly the challenges were with parents who did not know how to really deal with this technology compared to the children who could really quickly pick that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Any questions, any concerns? Feel free to ask Dr. Salman.
Well, I will continue to enjoy watching the rest of the panelists' presentation. So let's continue our reflections, and it's a beautiful forum. Again, thanks for inviting me.